Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, newly appointed Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber has extended the temporary concession for foreign nationals who are awaiting the outcomes of their visas, waivers, as well as their appeal applications. Now, the move is expected to safeguard skilled workers, tourists, and other affected by visa processing delays. However, the new minister said he needs more time to review the Zimbabwean Exemption Permits. And just last month, the Constitutional Court rejected an application by former Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi to appeal a decision by the High Court that the ZEP was terminated unlawfully. Now, Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda is the chairperson of the African Diaspora Global Network, and he joins me now to share with us first impressions of the new minister. Good evening, Dr. Vusi. It's good to see you again.
Good evening, and thank you very much, and good evening to listeners too.
No, it's great having you, Doctor. Let's get into this conversation. I know a lot of people were speaking about all these different ministers taking up different positions. We heard a lot on social media about Angie Motshekga when it comes to Minister of Defense. But let's talk about the Minister of Home Affairs right now. Were you surprised that President Ramaphosa actually gave this important portfolio to a DA minister?
Well, look, not completely surprised, because one of the things that we know is that all the other political parties have always been complaining about the state of affairs at the Minister of Home Affairs. So the Minister of Home Affairs has been doing extremely bad. So I think that there are challenges in that particular ministry, and particularly when it comes to the influx of, irregular migrants, because, the borders, are not easy to manage. So I think that to a huge extent, it feels like, the president and ANC saying, let us give them and see what they can do, if they can do differently, particularly when it comes to irregular migrants, commonly referred to as illegal immigrants.
No, without a doubt. I mean, I'm just looking at some of our ministers, and a lot of people on social media were speaking about, some of their past records, their experiences. I wanted to know, in terms of this Minister of Home Affairs, what is your initial impressions of Leon Schreiber?
Well, look, he's not given away quite a lot. I mean, look, he has said that, and one of the things that he has said is the desire to reduce queues at the Department of Home Affairs. We've also heard that in the past, but we know that the Department of Home Affairs and what the minister is saying, talking about efficiency, reducing times in terms of, application and the outcomes of visas. There is a standard operating procedure for a lot of these visas between 8 and 12 weeks. So I think if you can stick to that and probably try and minimize that bottleneck, because the bulk of the corruption that is caused at the Department of Home Affairs is as a result of the bottleneck that leads people, to then resort to these agents and other people that say, we're going to help you and make sure that, you get your visa or permit quicker. So that's what the minister is talking about. He's not given a lot even on other issues, but he says, look, he wants to study the situation, speak to people that are already, in the leadership, like he said he met, for example, with DG Makodi and so forth. So I think he is giving the impression that he wants to hit the road running, but he wants to understand the system and why it has been failing, before he can really make, major decisions. I think that's a very good thing, because it's not bringing in a new broomstick approach, but it's saying, I want to understand, and then I can only act as a guided person.
No, without a doubt. I mean, I'm just looking at, also the information that was shared with us when it came to the swearing in of the different ministers and deputy ministers. I mean, a lot of their comments also indicated that a lot of them are actually only going to, interact with their DGs and the teams that are in those, different ministries, probably from Monday onwards, not even in this week at all. So for him to already start working with his DG, I mean, that's definitely a positive without a doubt. But how important is his move to extend the exemption towards people waiting for the outcome of their waivers, or even any other applications for that matter?
Well, look, the response or the statement that was issued today in regards to the fact that he's extending all those visas that have been outstanding for quite some time, that had been extended to up to 30 June 2024, and he's extending it to the 30th of December 2020, is one of the litmus tests that he's going to have, because that is going to then inform us how he has dealt with in these 6 months, how he will have dealt with the backlog. which he has also mentioned that there's a serious backlog there that he needs to obviously deal with. So one, therefore, cannot, but just, be curious to see, the amount of changes, especially in clearing that backlog. He's spoken to the refugee, problem and asylum seeker crisis and how that needs, to be dealt with in such a way that, there are no backlogs, they're also going to be cleared. So when he says that and he talks to the core issues at the Department of Home Affairs, then one can only say, it's very important that we can see if he is able to crack this particular nut, because there's been a big conundrum there. And of course, which then extends, to civic affairs at the department. But one can only hope that, that can be corrected and there can be a complete buy-in from his DG and, the different DDGs in the various sections who then supervise the implementation, of this work. And he might have to take very tough stances in certain circumstances, because there is a lot of DDGs that have been at the department. And if they're not real, hitting the road running along with him, he might have to terminate, some of these, people, especially when it shows that they are being incompetent and they're not, touring the line and they're not meeting deadlines. Because you must remember that there are standard operating procedures and times that have already been given, and people need to stick to those.
Yeah, I mean, we heard, John Steenhuisen also saying that once he does meet some of the DGs, well, his DG in general, actually, at the ministry, if they're not up to standard, he's going to get rid of them. We heard the same thing with Gayton as well. So we will definitely wait and see what comes from this ministry. But I know that we spoke about the clearing the backlogs, right? And that's something that this minister emphasized a lot. I mean, through TV interviews, even while he was getting sworn in, he kept on emphasizing that that's the first thing that they really want to work on. But also he was speaking about, scarce skills visas as well. Now, how poorly have the previous administrations handled this aspect of migration? I mean, if you're looking at the work that was done by our former Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Motsoaledi as well.
Look, one of the things that we can definitely say when it comes to critical skills visas, we can see that South Africa had been, moving in a trajectory that was relatively trying to foster and facilitate the coming in of, skills from other countries. Like you would see that we've got a lot of doctors that come from countries like the DRC and Nigeria and so forth. Now, and those visas, during the previous minister, Gigaba, were even given concessions that they did not need to wait along, which when Minister Motsoaledi came in, he changed and even changed how this was dealt with. Now, the current minister is showing a lot of, enthusiasm in ensuring that there is ease in critical skills that are required by the country being facilitated so that they can easily, get integrated and get visas into the country. And that's a very crucial point because, look, it's all countries in the world, they look at critical skills, they look at, rare skills, they look at, even sports, people, and easily give them, permanent residence and visas and so forth, because those are beneficial to the country. And it does sound like, the current minister is reading from those scripts, what other countries are doing. And that's why he's saying, look, our country needs a lot of these critical skills. So I think that some of the changes that were made by the previous minister, Dr. Motsoaledi, are going to be reversed. And those were definitely not very, in the right direction, because they frustrated investors, they frustrated, tourists, they frustrated, the critical skills, and led even to quite a number of critical skills, holders leaving the country because they were so frustrated, by the system and the fact that they spent a lot of time waiting for these visas.
No, hopefully we do end up seeing a lot of those people either coming back, but also stopping a lot of them from moving over to the Netherlands and many other countries where, there's a lot of opportunity for them as well. We want to keep our best people in South Africa. But again, Dr. Sibanda, thank you so much for joining us tonight on INX Prime Live.
Only a pleasure. Good evening.
Perfect, guys. That is Dr. Sibanda, who is actually the chairperson of the African Diaspora Global Network, just sharing with us more, his thoughts on the current Minister of Home Affairs, who is actually a DA member, just sharing with us some of his forecasts of what he thinks might come about his tenure, but also just understanding where we are currently in South Africa. Now, on that note, we are going to take a quick ad break and then we'll come right back.